Alright guys, I'm here to talk about one of my favorite topics, the Cold War with Chuck Norris, Invasion USA. No one thought it could ever happen here. America wasn't ready. But he was. Dun dun dun. Okay, well, let me explain. Alright, the Cold War is 50 years of the United States and the USSR trying to determine which side was superior through a series of competitions and conflicts. Let's get into it. So, one of the #1 ways that affects you still to this day is trying to blow up the world. Who has nukes and who doesn't have nukes, and why should that matter to you? Well, let's just say I like sleeping at night. So it is an ideological battle between capitalism and communism. Capitalism is an economic system based on a free market and private ownership of goods and services, meaning people, private businesses, industries, they have the money, not the government. Okay? Versus communism is a political and economic theory derived from the idea of Karl Marx, whereby all property is publicly owned. That means you don't own anything, the government owns everything. So then it's also democracy versus dictatorship. Democracy is a system of government based on rule of the people. Versus socialism, a whole nother thing. An economic system where the basic means of production are primarily owned and regulated by the government. This is the huge deal. It wasn't really communism versus capitalism, though we talk about it like that, because the Soviet Union was trying to become a communist country. It is a class struggle, which I'll talk about class struggle in just a minute. Between who? The bourgeois or bourgeoisie, which is the wealthy class. They were concerned with property values. So that's on one side. Versus the proletariat, the working wage class or earning class. So communism sees it as a battle between the bourgeoisie, the rich people, and the proletariat, the workers. And that's part of what socialism fought about as well. And so this is the big ideological battle between the two. And of course, there's tons of movies, all the spy movies, all of the James Bond movies, tons of movies all about the Cold War. That's right, Top Gun, I'm looking at you. And of course, my favorite, Rocky IV, a brilliant film that you can watch this little documentary, it's not real, about. All right, so what are some of the events that lead up to the Cold War? So obviously we got to start with World War I, right? 1914 to 1918, whole world in battle. This leads to the Russian Revolution in 1917. We go through a whole bunch of ups and downs, but our major down is going to be the stock market crashes October 29th, 1929, and this causes a panic and creates a Great Depression from about 1929 to 1933 that affects the entire world. Well, you know that you have the rise of dictatorship and fascism and things like that, and we have World War II from 1939 thereabouts to 1945. So that sets the stage for the Cold War. So basically what happens is that World War II creates chaos and carnage. From 1937 until 1945, approximately 80 million people are dead in Europe to Africa to Asia. Crazy numbers. And after the war, there soon emerged two superpowers. And that's going to be what happens for the next 50 years, trying to decide who is superior. So who is it? It is the Soviet Union, the Union of Soviet Socialist Republic, USSR, versus, that's right, Captain America and the United States. Well, established in 1922, abolished in 1991, the USSR in 1991 had almost 300 million people. The motto of the country was "Workers of the world unite," and their form of government was a socialist state. That's right. Versus the United States, if you notice, we had a lot less people than them, about 250 million people at that time, and the form of government that we had is a federal, presidential, constitutional republic. Don't say that fast. I just call it DemCap, democratic, capitalistic. And we established our motto in 1956 in opposition to those atheist Soviets. In God we trust. That's right. That's only been around since 1956. So Cold War. What in the world is Cold War versus Hot War? Well, Cold War is a war without any real battles or armed conflict. More like a war of words or push-ups. Hot War is a war with battles, armed conflict, a war of killing and hurting. Cold War is the threat of war. Hot War is the act of war. All right, so let's go through our events. You have the United States drops the A-bomb. 1945 forms NATO, which was like the United States and our crew. 1949. But a few months later, in 1949, the USSR gets the A-bomb. Then China falls to communism. Then we have the Korean War play out. Then we have the Warsaw Pact, where the Soviet Union got with all of their crew and they formed their own posse to oppose NATO. Then we have the Cuban Revolution just 90 miles from Florida. Then we have the construction of the Berlin Wall to separate East and West Berlin, the communist from the capitalist side, the free side versus the not free side. Then we have the Cuban Missile Crisis, where we all almost died. You have the Vietnam War. Then you have the Soviet-Afghan War. Then you have this idea of glasnost and perestroika, which we'll get into later. And then the Berlin Wall falls. And then you have the dissolution of the Soviet Union. So, capitalism wins, communism fails. Ah, ha, 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 ha. So what's their beef? Which side is better, of course? And how are we going to show superiority? Well, through polar bears. Okay, not exactly polar bears. Let me go through it. Nuclear arms buildup. Who can build more bombs? Bomb, 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 bomb. Okay? So, basically, what happens is that in 1949, China falls to communism and the Soviet Union gets the bomb. This creates a huge and hectic scenario. We also have the Cuban Missile Crisis, where, unfortunately, we had invaded Cuba in the Bay of Pigs invasion in April 1961. Well, with that, we invaded Cuba. And so Cuba was like, hey, Soviet Union, you're our big communist brother. Can you guys give us some missiles in order to help protect us? And so they secretly brought in nuclear weapons just 90 miles south of the United States. And this created a huge kerfuffle in October, 13 days. Where we all thought that we were going to die. That's right. Yep, that's how far it was. So, our competition was who had more bombs. That's right. That was the competition. Bomb, 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 bomb. And so it was mostly talked till we almost got blown up in the Cuban Missile Crisis of 1962. Basically, it's a problem. Okay, so next theory. We have U.S. drops the A-bomb, NATO's formed, USSR gets the bomb, we got the Warsaw Pact, then we have the Cuban Missile Crisis. So then, after the Cuban Missile Crisis, basically Moscow and Washington are like, you know what we need? We need to have a hotline between the two so that we can call you up and be like, hey, are you trying to blow us up? No? Are you trying to blow us up? No? Great. Now, we don't have to have mutually assured destruction, MAD, MAD. We don't have to try and blow each other up. We can just go on building more and more bombs, more and more bombs. That's right. Until we get to the SALT talks, Strategic Arms Limitation talks of 1972, where basically we were building so many bombs that we were like, do we really? I mean, we can blow up the whole entire planet. Do we really need to blow up the planet anymore? We had over 30,000 nuclear weapons, and Soviet Union had over 45,000 nuclear weapons. Pretty crazy. Then we have the SDI, the Strategic Defense Initiative. Basically, it was nicknamed Star Wars, where we had a series of lasers set up in outer space. I know. It got to be a pretty crazy time in the USA and the USSR. So here you go. Here is all of our nuclear weapons, and you see that over the past few years, we've strategically been falling off, but we still have on the planet about 25,000 nuclear weapons, so we're doing great. Okay, next way that we fought was through the space race. So we're not just going to blow stuff up, we're going to blow stuff up into space. That's right. Again, it all starts with the United States dropping this atom bomb in 1945. And then the USSR gets the bomb. And then this really amazing thing happens. Just 8 years later, the USSR launches a satellite, the first one called Sputnik, or as I like to say, Sputnik. Okay, that's wrong too, by the way. Anyway, then we launch Explorer 1. Then they get the first human in space, Yuri Gagarin, first human in space. And then the next year, we get John Glenn in space. And then JFK does something off script, super crazy. He's like, we're going to launch and go to the moon. And everyone's like, okay, man, we just, like, this year got off planet Earth with humans. Like, and you're proposing we go to the moon? And he's like, yeah. All right, first woman in space, 1963. First American woman in space isn't Sally Ride until 1983. Okay. And then we win the space race. How come we won? Because we said that we won, number one. That's one of the things with winning. All you have to do is say, I win, and you win, maybe. But we landed Apollo 11 on the moon, July 20th, 1969. Woohoo! Another way that we did was through the Olympics, or as this dual track meet shows us, through having the shortest shorts possible. Okay, so there's this idea of the Iron Curtain. A few years after the end of World War II, former Prime Minister of Britain, Winston Churchill, proclaimed an Iron Curtain had descended across Europe. And on one side was communism, on the other side was democracy. Ha ha ha. Did you see how slowly that descended? Like an iron, like descending? Okay, you see that line right in the middle. So the domino theory is another major thing that existed. So you have China, Korea, Vietnam, Laos, Cambodia, Thailand, Malaysia, Indonesia, India. We're all worried about communism taking over. And I love this guy's tattoo because it's very confusing to me because he has a cross, and as a communist, you're supposed to be an atheist, but that's okay. He has the founders basically of Soviet socialism emblazoned on his chest. That's a lot of commitment, I would say. The theory of domino theory is that if one of these countries falls, China, Korea, Vietnam, that the rest of this area of the world is going to fall. And it turned out actually pretty much to be accurate, which is why we got in a lot of our wars. So they divide up the world again into something called spheres of influences, or SOIs. So sphere of influence is a powerful country having control over another country or region. So NATO, the North Atlantic Treaty Organization, was the United States' SOI, and the Warsaw Pact was the USSR's SOI. And again, they had polar bears that went back and forth fighting again and again. It was absolutely incredible. Spheres of influence is one of those things. From the United States perspective, we think the entire world deserves to be our sphere of influence because we say we are spreading democracy. Even though, if our record actually is examined, we've supported right-wing dictatorships over democracy all the time. Because if the people are willingly choosing communism or socialism, we say, hey, that's the wrong choice. We're going to stop you guys from making that decision. So as you see, we're getting bigger and bigger with our sphere of influence. All right, so let's compare and contrast NATO and the Warsaw Pact. So we have the North Atlantic Treaty Organization versus the Warsaw Pact signed in Poland's capital city. So those are the primary countries of NATO: USA, Canada, Britain, France, Italy, West Germany, among others. And the Soviet Union was them and their allies like East Germany, Bulgaria, Poland, and Hungary. NATO was mostly democratic and capitalistic, and the Warsaw Pact was mainly communist or socialist. Is this tomorrow under capitalism? Under communism. Ooh, that got dark quick. So examples of spheres of influence. So you have the Korean War from 1950 to 1953 with the US in South Korea, that was our SOI, and China and the USSR in North Korea. Vietnam War, the same thing. South Vietnam was our SOI, North Vietnam was USSR and China's SOI. So US direct response to the fall of China in 1949, Cuba in 1959, and the spread of the fear of the spread of communism. There's this crazy thing where they would have you duck and cover like a turtle under your desk at school. We had these drills where we would like try and prevent ourselves from getting killed by a nuclear bomb by hiding under your desk. I don't know about you, but I believe in the power of sitting at a desk. I just don't think it's that powerful. People had fallout shelters. The fear of nuclear war was huge. All right, so again, just to review, who's better? That's what we're fighting about. Nuclear arms buildup, space race, Olympics, NATO, and the Warsaw Pact, and spheres of influence all over the world. So we believed that democracy and capitalism should be promoted around the world, and the USSR believed that communism and socialism should be promoted around the world. Wait, are capitalism and democracy the same thing? No, they're not, but they have a few things in common. Capitalism maximizes liberty, competitive free market, economic system based on private ownership. You have the freedom to succeed and the freedom to fail. Democracy Oh, it's based on the people's rule, insists on the right to control their own institutions for their own purposes, meaning the people's right, not the government's right, and a high value on equality of individuals to be as free as possible. Again, we see freedom in both of these systems. So they're not the same, but they both involve maximizing individual freedom and liberty. Capitalism with your money, democracy with your government. Are communism and socialism the same? No. Communism is much more radical. It supports an armed and open rebellion, an all-powerful government that has total control over every aspect of your life. Versus socialism is a gradual change. You have some private ownership, some public ownership. You have government intervention in the economy, and it mixes capitalism and communism. But communism is a more specific type of socialism. So I always use Justin Bieber as my example. You have Bieber fever. You have people that are like, yeah, Justin Bieber's okay. And then you have people who are like, Justin Bieber's my best friend. Okay? Like, there's degrees, varying degrees. Now, are you wondering why I talked about Justin Bieber? Because nobody's talked about Justin Bieber? I just feel bad that nobody's talked about Justin Bieber in that long time. Okay, so what do they both believe? Capitalism divides people between the bourgeois and the proletariat. They believe in an equalization between classes by having one single class. Everybody's the same class. You don't have a class system. Everything is a social product, meaning everything is shared with everyone in common. Sounds pretty good, right? So ideally, capitalism has a competitive free market, economic system based on private ownership. And ideally, communism is a classless society. All property is owned by the community as a whole. And again, when I say ideally, I mean in a perfect world, so without humans. So capitalism ideally maximizes liberty. Communism, all people enjoy an equal status and economic status. Under capitalism, profit is the motivator, private ownership of capital and the means of production. Workers own the capital and means of production in a communist system. So workers, not the government. You have the freedom to succeed and the freedom to fail. So freedom is in your hands, ideally, in a capitalistic system. In a communistic system, it's the rule of the workers or the proletariat. That's who's in charge. So, pros of capitalism? Well, we see that in Adam Smith's Wealth of Nations, the freedom is to make money. That's the goal. You have few taxes. You have tons of goods available. Supply and demand are in charge. So we have, under communism, there are pros. Of course, everything's laid out in the Communist Manifesto. Everyone's considered equal. You have one class. Nobody has more or less than everybody else. Services are available to everyone. Doctors available to everyone. Dentists available to everyone. And everyone participates, right? Now, there's some real cons. In capitalism, not everyone gets services. Not everyone gets a job. Not everybody gets everything in a capitalistic system. And generally, the rich get richer because they have more money to start with. And it produces unfair opportunities for some. And then we have cons of a communist system. You have no incentive. If everybody gets everything, then if I don't do anything, I still get everything. So lack of incentive can lead to laziness. High taxes. Why? Because it's not your money. It's our money. And no one's an individual. We don't care about what you individually want. It's about all of us collectively as a group together, which can sound good, except I like being an individual. It's part of my identity. And also, con of communism will be government controls literally all aspects of your life. I don't know about you, that doesn't sound great to me. So in the end, we have capitalism. The pro people are rewarded based on their work. The pro of socialism, everyone is given his chance to succeed. A con of capitalism, only those with money can make more money. Con of socialism and communism may promote laziness. Well, I hope you enjoyed my own crash course into the Cold War. I really enjoyed this lesson. Have a great week, everybody.